What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Shonee Jackson Show. This is episode 20. Thank you for joining me. Like, subscribe, and share it with your friends if you're watching and enjoy this show. Today is going to be the prediction show. Made a shift to the regularly scheduled programming this week, and we're doing NFL and college football on the same shows. Early week will be a review show. Late week will be a preview show. That's the way I'm doing it moving forward. I like it this way. So today we're going to talk about college football first. Early in the week, we hit the NFL, the pros first, because that's what you finish the weekend off with. So we review the pros first in the early week show. We will preview the college kids first on the late week show because those games kick off first in college football over the weekend. So we're going to start off in college. Nebraska, Illinois on big noon kickoff on Fox to start off the Saturday. USC, Michigan in the afternoon game. Oklahoma, Tennessee, the big game at night in Norman, Oklahoma. Return of Josh Heupel. Arch Manning gets his first start. Going to dive into that, what to expect, the ULM coach's comments, and then a little bit on the NFL. We're going to review Jets, Patriots tonight, Eagles, Saints this Sunday, and then, of course, Cowboys, Ravens to close out the show. So let's get it started. Right at the top of the list, Nebraska versus Illinois, another big game in Lincoln, Nebraska at night. That crowd, the atmosphere will be absolutely electric. What's important to know and understand about this game is the fans of Big Red in Nebraska and Lincoln have been waiting about 25, close to 30 years to have a respectable football program, and they finally have it, and they can seize it coming. They feel it. They know that they have it, and you can expect that atmosphere week in, week out when you go play in Lincoln, especially at a night game, that it'll be completely electric and for sure be a difference maker. It's an interesting matchup. Two teams that are physical up front. Illinois is a team that nobody really ever wants to play. Beat them a ball. They're going to be physical. They're going to be really big up front. They're going to try to control the clock, time of possession, bleed you out, beat you up, and win that game. Fortunately for Nebraska fans, I believe you have the personnel and the physicality on your team to not only match up with that, but beat it. And to go along with the electric environment that you're going to have there in Lincoln, being 3-0, a chance to win in conference and make a statement early in the year, I think that's going to play in Nebraska's favor a lot. Luke Altmaier, the Illinois quarterback, is 54 of 78 for 647 yards and 6 touchdowns, no interceptions this year. That's an excellent stat line for Brent Bielema, quarterback right there. Rushing wise, 42 carries. 173 yards and 3 touchdowns out of their lead back. They're going to play Bielema ball. Like I said, they're going to be big up front. They're going to run the ball. They're going to bleed clock and try to control it most of the game. Can Nebraska stop that? I think that they can. They're coming into the game. They opened up as an 8.5-point favorite. They're now 7.5-point favorites. The point total of the over-under is set at 42.5. 2 plus 260 money line for Illinois, minus 320 for Nebraska. I think that some other big factors outside the physicality, or the other big factor outside of the physicality of Nebraska being able to match up with Illinois in this game, is going to be Dylan Raiola, the true freshman star quarterback. He's got the weird cosplay thing going on with Patrick Mahomes, and that's super weird. At first it was this cute little thing, like, oh, he looks up to Patrick Mahomes, he wears 15, wants to be like him, has his hair cut, shaves his face like him, does his warm-up like him, dresses exactly like him to a T, might start dating a skateboard-looking chick from Santa Monica here pretty soon, just like Patrick Mahomes. And just to top it all off, it's a very, very weird and odd thing, and anybody that loves the kid should start to advise them to do the different things. But one thing that he's done is played great football so far this year. He's been very efficient, and unlike a lot of young quarterbacks, he's taken care of the football very well. And unlike quarterbacks that Nebraska has dealt with for the better part of the last decade and a half, he takes care of the football. He's not plagued with turnovers that ultimately lose them games. I think that stays this way in this game. He takes care of it. He makes plays when they present themselves. He's really their offense right now. They got a good running game, but he adds to that running game. And as far as the passing game goes, they got Isaiah Nayer, transferred from Texas, played at Wyoming before that. He's at 12 receptions, 187 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But they don't have the outside threat that's consistently there enough that could take them to the next level. And yet, I'm all the way bought in on Nebraska. If you've been watching this show all the way along, I picked Nebraska to be in the Big Ten Championship in the preseason. So now I'm for sure going to ride that train all the way to the end. No Diddy, but I'm going to ride that all the way to the end. And I like Nebraska in this game. I like Nebraska to make a statement. I think Dylan Raiola takes what's given to him, and he'll make a handful of plays in this game to extend the lead or to keep them in the lead once they get in the lead. I like Nebraska to cover the -7.5 and make a statement there at home at Lincoln, Nebraska to the rest of the country and the rest of the Big Ten that nobody is going to walk into Lincoln this season and just push around Nebraska the way they have in previous years. They're a force to be reckoned with, and they're not going anywhere in college football under Matt Rule anytime soon. Give me the Cornhuskers in that game. I predict Nebraska to make a statement at home. Let's move on. Another massive game with a lot to discuss. Michigan versus USC at home in the Big House. USC's first game in the Big Ten, going to the Big House, and they open up. They opened as a 6.5-point favorite. That's gone down to a 5.5-point favorite. I haven't looked at where the money's at. I'm guessing there's a lot of money on Michigan to cover that in this game, but they opened at -6.5, going into the Big House as 5.5-point favorites. Michigan's making a quarterback change. Benching Davis Warren after a putrid performance against Arkansas State. The Arkansas State game ended up being 28-18 Michigan. The score doesn't tell the story. Michigan had 300 rushing yards in that game. Absolutely, obviously stifled Arkansas State's offense, even when Michigan was handing them the ball in their own territory, was getting them 3 and out off the field. And Davis Warren just did everything in his power to keep Arkansas State in that game. So far this year, Davis Warren is 48-72, 444 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. That is unacceptable, especially because he won the job. I think because Sherrone Moore trusted him to take care of the football and throw the football better than Alex Orji can, and he threw for 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Got to bench him the rest of the year. Outside of injury, there's no reason to put him in as a starting quarterback again. That'd be a slap to the face of the locker room and the fan base, in my opinion. Alex Orji, super athletic kid. I talked about him last week before the games. I thought he was a kid that looked dejected. You know, he knows his upside as a football player. He's played his whole life. He's probably been dominant his entire life as a football player. And he's being used in situational opportunities to go in as a running quarterback. The defense always knew he was running the ball. He looked dejected, looked like a guy that just was frustrated that he was only playing a handful of plays a game. I think a guy like that, for better or for worse, he needs reps. He needs to learn on the fly. He needs to learn in these games. You need game plans that put him in position to win, but he needs to play, and I do think he gives Michigan a better chance than Davis Warren does. This USC defense has been completely turned around. That was the story of the offseason. There was a culture change. They made a defensive coordinator change, an entire defensive staff change. They changed the way they practice. They actually tackle in practice now at USC under Lincoln Riley, and what do you know? They tackle better in games now that they practice tackling. I think some big things in this game. Obviously, the quarterback change. Can Alex Orji make enough plays with his arm to get them to respect the passing game, or at least to have to be wary of the passing game the way that Michigan needs them to do, so Michigan can run the football, control the clock? I think Michigan wants to run the ball 40 to 50 times in this game. I'm not kidding, between Orji and the running backs. I think they want to run it at least 40, 45 times. That's the formula to success for Michigan. Play elite stifling defense. The Lincoln Riley offense, there's never just one option with that offense. You're going to have, obviously, his bread and butter, the GT pool, which is dominant and never not going to be dominant. Can Michigan stand up to that with that massive defensive front? Can Michigan stand up to the USC rushing attack with Miller Moss and the running backs without having to overcommit to that? I think they can. They should be able to. They obviously have the personnel for it. The 2 best interior defensive linemen in the nation, and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. How do they play? And then obviously you got Will Johnson, arguably the best corner in the country, one of the best defensive players in the country. How does he man up and match up against Zachariah Branch and the guys at USC? Obviously, those matchups, we're going to keep an eye on it. Can the USC defense keep up with the questionable Michigan offense? You know, questionable is putting it lightly. But you're gonna find out this week about that USC defense. Michigan is going to load it up and run right at USC's ass, and let's test their physicality, see if they're really cut like that. They've played Utah State, LSU, and Louisville so far, dominating pretty much every game except the LSU game was a very close 27-20 game. Their defense looked good against LSU, but we've come to find out that LSU running game has been nothing to write home about, right? And so now they're going to play a really physical rushing attack in Michigan, especially with the quarterback change in Alex Orji. How does USC match up with that? And can they force turnovers, force Michigan into doing things that they don't want to do, like throw the ball and turn it over, right? Um, and then by also the Michigan defense is by far the best defense this USC team has played yet. So how does Miller Moss fare against that? I think he'll play well. I like Miller Moss a lot. I think the kid has a lot of moxie. He's a little emotional and sensitive, acting like he won the national championship after that LSU game. They got a lot of football left to play for USC. We're going to find out a lot about him this week, I think, going into that game. Obviously, Michigan's running game. I've already talked about that. And then Michigan's back is against the wall at home this week. Listen, if Michigan loses its first Big Ten game against USC at home, it's 5.5-point underdogs. It is looking bleak for the rest of the year. They got Minnesota, Washington, then they got to go to Illinois. That's going to be a tough game. Michigan State at home this year versus Oregon, and then of course they finish against Ohio State in Columbus at the Horseshoe this year. Back against the wall. You cannot go 2-2 here. The fan base is going to feel dejected at that point. The quarterback play has to take a step up. Alex Orji has to show something, make some plays with his arm, obviously lead to making plays with his legs, some big touchdowns. Michigan's going to have to keep this as a low-scoring game. What was the point total again? It's set at 44.5. Formula to winning this game. Michigan wants to keep it under that. I'll take the under in this game. I'll talk about the spread later, but my prediction is going to be that this is a 4-quarter ball game. It's closer than a lot of people may think it will be. Whether USC covers or not, I'm not going to say that here. I'll save that for the Shonee the Money Pick'em show. But I think it's a 4-quarter game. Comes down to the final possessions of the football game. A lot closer than people may think. The Michigan defense makes plays, and I think that they find some success with Orji. Let's move forward. Let's talk about, last but not least, the Oklahoma-Tennessee game in Norman, Oklahoma, the big matchup of the week. It's opened up. It opened up as Tennessee minus 7.5. It's gone down to Tennessee minus 7. Tennessee is a touchdown favorite on the road going to Norman. Oklahoma has yet to throw for 200 passing yards this season, going against a Tennessee team that has yet to give up a touchdown this season with that starting defense. So Oklahoma's offensive line has been beat up all season long. They're expected to get some guys back. They get Nick Anderson, the receiver, back. That should help a little bit. How much does it help? I'm not so sure. You know what I'm saying? The return of Josh Heupel and the storylines to go with that. Josh Heupel, the head coach at Tennessee, the former quarterback, national championship quarterback at Oklahoma, the last player to win a national championship at Oklahoma. He's really the quarterback that brought Oklahoma back. The only decade that Oklahoma has really been bad in is the 90s, and he was the quarterback the late 90s, early 2000s that brought the Sooners back to prominence. They won a national championship in 2000 with Josh Heupel. He later on became the offensive coordinator where he was fired. Now, Josh Heupel went on to reinvent himself after that, become a head coach, went to UCF, now he's at Tennessee, and he has saved and turned around the Tennessee football program and deserves all the credit in the world for doing that. And yet, although the reinvention of himself, finding himself offensively, and that's kind of the story of why he got fired, there's some bad blood there with Josh Heupel. One, he was not really the problem at Oklahoma during that time. The problem at Oklahoma that time was Bob Stoops' brother, Mike, who was actually the incompetent one on that coaching staff. And Josh Heupel was the original scapegoat in that situation. Luckily, they moved on to Lincoln Riley. Hit a home run with that. The rest is history with the Lincoln Riley era at Oklahoma. Now we're here in the Brent Venables era, and Josh Heupel is returning home with the Tennessee team that's number 6 in the country, absolutely on fire, coming off a 71-0 win against Kent State. They beat NC State 51-10, Chattanooga 69-3. They're breaking records every single week, stomping on teams' throat, kicking onside kicks up 35-0 against Kent State. So Josh Heupel has already shown that he has it in him to want to step on the throat of an opponent when he has them down. This Oklahoma offense is down, their defense is up. And yet, Tennessee is by far the best opponent that Oklahoma has played. Now, Oklahoma fans on the other end are going to be screaming through the mic, oh, we're by far the best team Tennessee has played. Yeah, maybe so. I don't think NC State's that good this year. They were ranked in the preseason. They haven't looked great yet. Obviously, Tennessee dominated them. They play Clemson this week. I think Clemson's going to beat them up pretty good. We'll see. But, Tulane, Temple, and Houston, I don't know. I think NC State's got a chance to beat all 3 of those teams if you ask me, and they're probably favored against all 3 of those teams if you ask me. So Oklahoma has not played anybody with the capability of this Tennessee offense, that veer and shoot offense that Josh Heupel runs. Oklahoma seems to be very confident that Brent Venables is going to hold up strong against that, and I think he will. I think this Oklahoma defense is legit. Venables is in year 3 now. They're playing very fast. They play very sound. They're smart. I think that they can cause problems with this Tennessee offense. Now, keys to the game. Can Tennessee get that running game and keep that running game going the way that it has? Dylan Sampson, is that his name? Yeah, Dylan Sampson, I think, is third in the FBS in rushing yards. He has 45 carries, 357 yards, and 9 rushing touchdowns through 3 weeks of the season. Nico Mamaliva is 48 for 67, 698 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Obviously, they've been very, very explosive. And it's predicated on that running game, right? Can they continue the success? And if they continue the success, how do they continue the success? Because they run the ball a lot up the middle, inside zone, in that veer and shoot offense, dive action, stuff like that. And that is where the strength of the Oklahoma run defense is, where Oklahoma rush defense has been susceptible, has been on the edges. That's where Tulane found a lot of success against them last week, and that's why that was a 4-quarter game. Although Oklahoma covered, that was really a backdoor cover. The score doesn't tell a story on that. Tulane had a chance to take the lead in the 4th quarter and kind of made a crazy decision on a 3rd and 1, turned it over, and then it was basically wraps after that. But they found their rushing success on the edges, whereas Tennessee hasn't really done that this year. Can Josh Heupel make an adjustment? Does he have to make an adjustment if Oklahoma stops it? If not, if Oklahoma doesn't stop the Tennessee rushing attack, this is going to get ugly in Norman, because I don't see a world where the Oklahoma offense is going to keep up with Tennessee if they're rolling offensively. Like I said, they haven't thrown for 200 yards yet in a game. Last week, they really had to use Jackson Arnold's legs to win that game against Tulane. I don't know that they do win that game if they don't have the QB rushing attack that they had a week ago. And I don't really see that being the case against Tennessee or against the rest of your opponents in the SEC this year. Jackson Arnold can run on you if the passing attack is working and he sneaks up on you a little bit. He has some athleticism to him. I would compare him more to a Sam Ehlinger as a runner than like a Nico or some of these electric runners that you see in college football, an Arch Manning, dare I say. But he can run around a little bit, but these SEC defenses, specifically this Tennessee defense, which is why they're truly a national title contender in my eyes, I don't think that Jackson Arnold's a threat in the running game, especially if they're not threatening him in the passing game, right? And I'm sorry, I just don't anticipate for a light to switch on for this Oklahoma offense all of a sudden against Tennessee this year or in the SEC. If it didn't switch on against Houston, Tulane, and Temple, I don't see how it switches on here. And that's where I'm kind of just flabbergasted at the attitude coming out of Norman, Oklahoma, that they've just been keeping their offense under wraps, trying to get guys healthy and waiting to unload it against Tennessee. Well, how much are you going to unload it against Tennessee? And if that's the case, why do some of the guys like Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, Josh Heupel, Lincoln Riley, why don't they wait to unload their offenses? Why do they unload it right away in the season? That's not really a thing. Yes, there's some things you would probably like to keep off film for your opponents. Every team does that. Texas is doing that. There's stuff we'd probably like to try to keep under wraps for Oklahoma this year, and vice versa. And yet, when you're in 4-quarter ball games, that goes out the window. You want to win games. Oklahoma has not been keeping the playbook under wraps when they were in a one-possession game against Houston. All right? I just don't believe that. Maybe I'm wrong, but we're going to find out on Saturday night. All right? Players are coming back like Nick Anderson. I've already mentioned that. And the Vols defense is yet to give up a touchdown. So, all of that said, I do think that both quarterbacks, both freshmen in their first season as starters in a crazy environment. This is Nico's first road game. This atmosphere in Norman is going to be as good as it has been in over a decade. I think everybody is anticipating that. The first SEC championship game at home. They're 7-point underdogs. They got all the fuel in the world from the national media. Nobody in the world is picking Oklahoma outside of Oklahoma fans and former Oklahoma players. So they're going to have all the fuel. That defense is going to come out flying around trying to make a statement early. I think both quarterbacks turn it over. Wouldn't even be surprised if Oklahoma gets out to a hot start being the home team. But my prediction is Tennessee pulls away late and covers late in this game. I think that Jackson Arnold is not going to find it this week. They're going to pressure him and pressure him a lot. He's already shown that he makes terrible decisions under pressure, especially under the man blitz. You're going to see a lot of that. He threw a pick six that almost threw the game away against Tulane last week. I think he throws more interceptions this week, turns it over, stirs up some of that conversation that's probably ridiculous right now in Oklahoma but Oklahoma fans are Oklahoma fans. In between the ears, they're not the brightest people in the world. Breaking news to some of you guys. And so it's going to stir up some QB conversation, some controversy in Norman, Oklahoma. This could be tough looking forward. They got Auburn, then a bye week, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss. They finished the year with Missouri, Alabama, and LSU after a game against Maine in November. This could get ugly for Oklahoma. They're going to have to play very good defensively. They're going to have to find some running success themselves on offense, and they're going to have to take care of the football. Sorry if I'm remiss by saying I don't believe that they will. Give me Tennessee in this game, and I think that they cover late. And I'll also take the under at 56.5. Not to give too many spoiler alerts on the Shonee the Money Show. I just gave that one entirely away. But give me Tennessee. I think they cover late in Norman. Arch Manning is starting his first football game against Louisiana Monroe this week. I think most of us expected that. Quinn Ewers has an abdomen injury. It could be a week. It could be 2 weeks. Arch could start against Mississippi State next week. I think how he plays this week will show a lot of that. What to expect? I think Arch has another great game against this UL Monroe team. The UL Monroe coach made some headlines saying some stuff like he doesn't expect Texas to prepare the same way because they're not that good of a team. It's a crazy thing to say. He also said that they have some teams on their team that played against Arch in New Orleans in high school. A couple guys that beat him already, so they don't hold too much fear against him. He actually doesn't. Nobody on the UL Monroe team has played Arch in high school when he was at Isidore Newman. Shout out to Danny Davis of the Austin American Statesman for doing the investigative research on that. That's actually not true. None of them played him in high school. I think this is going to get ugly really fast. This is a really good and deep Texas Longhorns football team. We're going to be able to score at will however we want to do it. I think we'll have a dominant rushing attack with Jarrett Gibson, and Jaden Blue should return this week. If he returns, even if he doesn't return, dominant rushing attack with Jarrett Gibson and Arch Manning and others. I think you'll continue to see some RPOs, not as many RPOs with Quinn. I don't think Arch is where Quinn is at mentally as a quarterback. In fact, I know he's not where Quinn's at mentally as a quarterback yet. Although he looked fantastic last week, and I think that will continue to stay the same, I think we lean on our athletes in this game. We move the pocket for them. We push the ball down the field early and often. UL Monroe does show some 3 high safety looks. I expect them to do that again this game. But if they do that on early downs, we're going to run the ball on them. And I think we're going to run the ball on them no matter what. And so I don't know how often we see the 3 high safety looks. If we do, it'll be interesting to see how Arch plays against that. But I think this will be a blowout. Texas is a 45.5-point favorite. I think they cover that. I think they hang a 50 burger and likely goose egg this ULM team to go on to 4-0, the number 1 team in the country, Texas Longhorns, and just dead all the QB controversy talk. Quinn Ewers is the most disrespected quarterback in the history of my life watching college football. Quinn Ewers is the best quarterback in the country, and it's not close, let alone the best quarterback on his football team. He's going to come back. We're going to get him healthy, and he's going to have a dominant run in the SEC on his way to what I think is going to be a national championship, a Heisman Trophy, and have him as the number 1 pick in the draft. Let's stop the ridiculous conversation. I think Texas fans are being smart about it. They'll continue to be smart about it. But, yeah, there is no QB controversy. And if you really know what you're watching and talking about, you'll understand quickly when you watch the tape that Quinn Ewers is the best quarterback on this football team. And we can do more offensively with him. Even though Arch has an insane running element, I get that. We can do more in Sark's system with Quinn right now than we can with Arch in drop back and even in the RPO game. All right, let's stop being ridiculous. Let's move on to the NFL now. Let's start with the game tonight. The New York Jets versus the New England Patriots in an AFC East matchup at home. The Jets are 6-point favorites. I think they're the home team. Yeah, the Jets are the home team. 6-point favorites. It opened up at 7. The over-under is now set at 38.5. Expected to be a low-scoring game is what that tells you. And I think this is a closer game than a 6-point favorite. I think that's why that number's moving down. The money must be coming in on the Jets. The Patriots have looked good this year. They upset the Bengals week 1. They had a close game against the Seahawks in week 2, losing by 3. The Jets got dominated by the Niners in week 1, and then they won week 2 against the Titans, 24-17. Will Levis is terrible and a terrible decision maker. So the Jets won that game. They're getting a little bit too much favoritism in my eyes. I would take the Patriots in this game at +6. Jacoby Brissett's 30 for 51, 270 yards, 1 touchdown, game manager. Aaron Rodgers, 31 of 51, 343 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. They're running the ball. Breece Hall has 30 carries for 116 yards, 1 touchdown, not great. The Patriots are running the ball very well this year. They're playing good defense. The Patriots are not a bad football team. I think this is a closer game than some may think. It's a Thursday night game, a short week. These are usually low scoring. How does Rodgers play? How does he come off of the short week? Being an old man coming off an Achilles injury. I think this is a solid game. My prediction is that the Jets cover that the Patriots cover, but the Jets win in a close one. But I would not be surprised at all for the Patriots to upset them in this game. Let's move on though. Let's move on to this weekend. Talk about the Eagles Saints. This is a game I want to dive into a little bit more. This is an interesting one. All right, the Eagles absolutely fumbled that game on Monday night against the Falcons. Had every reason to win that game. They have a bad game manager as a head coach, and they can't stop the run at all whatsoever. Going against a team that's run the ball better than anybody in the league. Some key stats here. The Eagles defense through 2 games. They're tied for 32nd, which is last in the NFL in yards per play. They are 29th in EPA per play. They're 27th in sack rate. They don't get any pressure on the quarterback. Kirk Cousins is an absolute statue that can't move around at all, coming off an Achilles injury himself. And the Eagles got no pressure on Kirk Cousins whatsoever. And they're 23rd in the league in QB pressures. The Phillies' edge rushers have yet to record a sack in 6 games going back to the last year. I'm going to show you a quick play real quick. That's an example. This was early in the game. It's not a touchdown or anything like that. This is early in the game of what the Eagles defense looks like in the running game. Look at every single player get blocked out, kind of like the Cowboys did versus the Saints all week last week. I mean, that's just parting like the Red Sea. Parting like the Red Sea, every single player getting blocked out. Bijan Robinson had a massive game. I think the Chiefs run all through the Eagles this week. Let me get this off the screen. And on the other side, the Saints offense has looked like the best offensive unit in the NFL, definitely the best rushing attack in the NFL through 2 weeks. But their defense, now mind you, they've played Carolina and the Cowboys. And those are 2 offenses with nothing to write home about through 2 weeks of the NFL season. The Cowboys lack weapons. We all know that. I've talked about that. Everybody's talked about that. We lack weapons offensively. We were trailing the whole game, so some of these rushing stats are skewed by that. But 4th in points per game allowed and 14.5 points. I think they've given up like 20 points through 2 games. They've outscored opponents like 90-20. They're 3rd in rushing yards allowed per game and 63 yards per game. That may be just total, honestly. 2nd in yards per game, in yards per carry, and 3.1. 7th in total yards per game and 273. And 3rd in sacks with 7. An elite defense under Dennis Allen right now. Going against a Philly offense that is far from elite, all right? Jalen Hurts through 2 games. 43 for 64, 461 yards, 3 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Hey, guys, it's sick that he didn't throw any interceptions in training camp. So sick that he went all training camp without throwing an interception. Well, he's thrown at least an interception a game so far this year through 2 games. 3 interceptions through 2 games. Could be a lot more. Could be a lot more. He's made some bad decisions with the football. Jalen Hurts is just an average NFL running back, playing quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Derek Carr, 30 for 39, 443 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. The New Orleans Saints scored on their first 15 drives of the season this year. Say what you want about whoever they have played. That is dominant. That is going to be one of the best units in the NFL all season long. The New Orleans Saints, in my opinion, are a true Super Bowl contender. And I'm not just saying that because they beat the brakes and rotors off the Dallas Cowboys this last week. You don't do this through 2 weeks. You don't outscore opponents 90-20 if you're not very good in this league. Alvin Kamara has 35 carries for 198 yards and 4 touchdowns through 2 weeks. Rashid Shaheed, 7 receptions, 169 yards and 2 touchdowns through 2 weeks. Saquon Barkley's at 46 carries, 204 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's looked great in 2 weeks, and yet this is by far the best defensive unit that the Eagles have played so far. They have a very good running defense. I think that they will keep Saquon at bay. They will force the Philadelphia Eagles to do things they don't want to do, open up in the passing game. It'll expose that sorry-ass Kellen Moore scheme where his receivers get no spacing whatsoever in those route concepts. They stand on top of each other. You can anticipate the routes. You can get aggressive defensively. If the Saints are able to get pressure when they get pressure on the Eagles, they're going to cause a lot of problems. I think Jalen will turn this ball over. The Saints are at -2.5. Saints are my favorite pick of the week this week. And like I said, the Eagles' run defense can't stop anything, in particular on the outside zone, where the Saints have been absolutely dominant in outside zone so far this season. I think the Saints continue their dominance in outside zone and make an absolute statement. The 2.5 is honestly disrespectful to the home team in the New Orleans Saints this week, the way that they've played and what the Eagles have shown defensively this year. And also on top of that, Nick Sirianni is the worst game manager in the NFL as a head coach. He's been a game manager since he stepped in the NFL. Going for it every single time he gets to is ridiculous and was always going to be his demise. He is the reason they lost that game last week. He went for it when they had a chip shot field goal in the first quarter on like a 4th and 4. They didn't get it. They gave it away to the Falcons, who I think went and got points after that. And then going for it, or at the end of the game, not running the ball, throwing the ball to midget hands on Saquon Barkley. He's got the smallest hands you've ever seen in your life. He's got cartoon hands. He dropped that ball, stops the clock. They have to kick the field goal. They give the ball back to the Falcons. Two things we're not talking about here. One, yes, the Eagles absolutely should have run the ball. There's no question about it. Don't say this bullshit of, oh, if he caught it, it's the right play call. Sure, but he didn't catch the ball, and they were running the ball pretty much at will against the Saints, against the Falcons at that point. The Falcons were in a very soft defense all the way down the field. You could have run the ball twice. You could have run the ball, got close and done a tush push, or you could have run the ball, got stopped and kicked the field goal, gave it back to him at 40 seconds. Mind you, the Falcons went right down the field and scored in 35 seconds, so maybe that wouldn't have worked either. But running the ball is clearly the answer there. He didn't do it. Terrible decision. Gives the ball right back to the Falcons. They lose the game. Also, the interception at the end of the game. They needed 15 yards to get in the field goal range. They had 2 timeouts. Jalen Hurts just walked the Falcon, Snead into that interception. Just walked him right to the interception. You want to talk about staring guys down. 2 guys that stare receivers down more than any quarterback on the planet right now. Jackson Arnold, Jalen Hurts, 2 Oklahoma Sooners. Just stare receivers down. They'll walk you right to the football. Watch their eyes. They'll walk you right to the ball. I'm not sure if BBL A.J. Brown is back this week. He's listed as doubtful, so I guess he's probably not. Hamstring issues, those tend to linger all season long. By the way, the draft pick y'all gave up for the Dotson, the receiver in the division, yeah, he sucks. This is the problem with the Cowboys, though. They're in the most incompetent division in the NFL, and they win games because of that. They might make the playoffs because of that. They might beat the Eagles or the entire division. They might run right through it this year. And then we're going to run into the Saints, a team that can run outside zone, and they're going to dominate us, and that's what happens. But I digress. Speaking of the Cowboys, let's move on to them. Ravens-Cowboys, 0-2 Ravens versus the 1-1 Cowboys in AT&T Stadium. The Cowboys have been absolutely dominated the last 2 games at home against Green Bay Fudge Packers and last week against the New Orleans Saints. The Cowboys have given up like 1,000 rushing yards in those 2 games, it feels like. And every single time you close your eyes, I see Aaron Jones or Alvin Kamara tiptoeing into the end zone and taunting us. Does that continue this week against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry? I'm not so sure. It's a different rushing attack. They run some outside zone stuff too, but it's predicated with the QB run game. I do think we have some personnel between guys like Overshown, Micah Parsons, and others to match up with that and actually hold up against it. I don't think, for the love of God, I don't think that they're going to run the ball the way the Saints did on us. I think some of that is a schematic thing, and not even against Zimmer's scheme, but just even the personnel of our defense. We don't set the edge very well with Micah Parsons and our edge guys. Our cornerbacks don't really set the edge either when they need to. And those outside zone stretch plays just kill us. They just kill us. We don't got linebackers to get off blocks, and our defensive tackles don't help that. But I don't think the Ravens' offensive line is as good as the Saints' offensive line. They haven't shown that through 2 weeks of the season. This is a Ravens team that just lost to the Raiders and Gardner Minshew. It's a 1-point spread. The Ravens are the 1-point favorite on the road. I think a lot of people anticipate the Ravens to come in and dominate Dallas. I'm not so sure. The Ravens defense doesn't look like the Ravens defense has the last few years. They let Gardner Minshew throw the ball around on them. I think we throw the ball a little bit around on the Ravens. I think we find rushing success against the Ravens this week. We have to find a rushing attack. And I think that we have a chance to find a rushing success the same way teams have found rushing success against us. One way you can help your defense and your run defense is to start running the ball yourself, taking care of the football, controlling the football at the time of possession of the game. We can do that along the edges, I think. I think that's the place that we can find success this week. Look for us to do that, hopefully. If the Cowboys lose this game, all bets are off. The Ravens have their backs absolutely against the wall. They're 0-2. Everybody knows, historically speaking, starting 0-3 is a death sentence in the NFL as far as your playoff hopes are concerned. But I think the Cowboys are the same way in this light. This is a do-or-die game for both teams. Dak Prescott versus Lamar Jackson. What's going to happen? Something's got to give. This defense has to show something. I do believe in Mike Zimmer. I'm never going to stop believing in Mike Zimmer. I think he makes adjustments this week. I would love to see Micah Parsons off the ball a lot more than we have seen. He is absolutely useless on the edge when teams start running the ball right at him and run the ball down our throat. Take him off the ball, play him at the will, let him run around, make tackles. He'll get off blocks, off the ball, attacking the run game better than probably any of our other linebackers on the roster. I think that'll make a big impact on stopping the run, and then you could situationally use him, rushing off the edge on passing downs, and with Mike Zimmer's patented double-A gap pressure that he likes to bring and likes to show, whether they come, whether they don't. Micah Parsons could be an absolute weapon in that. He was week one. I understand we were getting killed and had to play a lot of base defense last week. We played a lot more base 4-3 than we're used to playing. Got outside the 4-2-5, got outside the nickel defense that he wants to run, playing more base 4-3, and we got killed, right? Even in the base, let's move him off the ball. Let's have him start playing the run more until we do it. We got to do something to stop the run, or all bets are off, right? Mike Zimmer's been doing this for a really long time. That's what we brought him in to do. It's time to adjust. We got to play a lot better. I think that they do. I take the Cowboys in this game, but we'll see. This is something. It's a do-or-die game for both teams. Lamar Jackson so far, passing-wise, 47-75 for 522 touchdowns and an interception. Their depth of target is lowest in the league. That's another reason I'm more confident in this game than most people probably are. If they don't have the receivers to threaten us down the field like Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, they got what's the guy's name that they drafted last year? Ravens. Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, their best receiver, and then Isaiah Likely has kind of taken over that tight end spot. They still got Mark Andrews, who had 4 receptions for 51 yards a week ago. Isaiah Likely had the big week one, but they don't got the weapons to really threaten us down the field. I'm sure they could say the same thing about us. And yet I think it's just a different matchup than the Saints were a week ago. Give me the Cowboys. I like the Cowboys to bounce back this week, win a game, and bury the Ravens this year, start them 0-3. Let's close this show off with another discussion of top dollar quarterbacks in the NFL. I have long been on the train that the QB, pay structure, if you will, is cockamamie, and it is killing teams. Out of the top 15 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, the ones that are 2-0 are Patrick Mahomes. He's the 12th highest paid guy. The 14th highest paid guy in Josh Allen, the 7th highest paid guy in Justin Herbert, and that's it. Out of the top 15 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. The other 2-0 quarterbacks so far, that teams appear to be some of the better teams in the NFL, like the Vikings with Sam Darnold, he's not on that list. The Saints with Derek Carr, he's not on that list. The Seattle Seahawks with Geno Smith, he's sure as shit not on that list. Who else is 2-0? I talked about this on the show last week. Going to talk about it till I'm blue in the face, because the long off-season battle that I had with dozens and dozens of people of calling me an idiot for not wanting to give Dak Prescott $60 million a year. It wasn't about Dak Prescott. It's about my overall belief that paying your quarterback can be a death sentence to your Super Bowl hopes. Paying your quarterback that much money. Quarterbacks are making more than they've ever made at any point in my life. Let me read you a stat real quick. And obviously they're making more, you can say what you want. Everybody's making more at every single position. They're by far richer than everybody in the NFL, and it's not even close. Through 2 weeks of the NFL season, there have been 69 passing touchdowns, the fewest since 2006. 7.1 average target depth, lowest on record ever in the NFL. 41% design run plays, highest since 2008. 30-second TOP play. I don't know what that even means. Oh, time of possession play. Slowest since 2008. 545 blitzes, fewest on record. 46% too high safety percentage, highest on record. So, I say that to say quarterbacks are making more and continue to make more and continue to break records with their contracts, and they're doing less than they ever have in the history of our game. These quarterbacks aren't even playing the position anymore, and you bozos don't realize this. Your quarterback these days is the guy in the headset more often than not than it is the guy on the field. They're not making reads. They're not checking plays. They're not getting you into the right play. They're not doing anything at the line of scrimmage. The centers are setting the protection more so than the quarterbacks are. Quarterbacks are not even playing the position anymore. Lamar Jackson's yards per depth per target is like 1.7 yards through 2 games of the season. They're not even pushing the ball down the field. They're not asking them to throw the ball in the intermediate game very little to nothing at all. They're not even playing the position, but we want to keep breaking records and paying them more money. That is fucking cockamamie. The 2-0 quarterback Baker Mayfield is 2-0. Derek Carr is 2-0. Sam Darnold is 2-0. Geno Smith is 2-0. Gardner Minshew just beat Lamar Jackson. Derek Carr just beat the brakes and rotors off the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. 2 of the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks are injured right now. Tua Tagovailoa is being encouraged by most to retire. He just broke a record on a contract. Baker Mayfield just beat Goff, who broke a contract record, and the Packers quarterback, Jordan Love, he's injured right now, lost his only start to the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, he has 3 interceptions, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, the top dollar quarterbacks are not lighting the world on fire, and the quarterbacks that are making less or on rookie deals, CJ Stroud, Justin Fields, those are 2-0 quarterbacks, rookie contracts, mind you. They're either on rookie contracts or reasonable deals that allow you to go without any holes on your defense that can get exposed by the best offenses in the league, or any holes on the line of scrimmage or across your roster. You can load up your roster, you can bring in good coaching, and you can do that with the quarterback making good money, but not cockamamie money. Sorry, but I continue to be proven right on that theory. Until I'm proven wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong, and I'll fall on my face when that time comes. Hey, we all fall short of the glory of God a time or two. I do that every week, but I'm not wrong on this. The quarterback contract shit has gotten ridiculous. It is cockamamie, and now we deal with things like the Cowboys have dealt with the last 5 years when we play teams that are dominant and outside run. We don't have the personnel to stop it or do anything about it, and we get face fucked, for lack of a better term. This is the Shonee Jackson Show. Thanks for tuning in. This was the prediction show. I love you guys more than you know, but not as much as you think. God bless. Have a good weekend.